So my name is Jason Boss. I'm a retired staff sergeant from the U.S. Army. I was a military police officer for about 9 years, and I also worked canines, so explosive detection dogs. Very cool job. Loved it. When I joined the military, I was looking for a purpose. I wanted to do something that other people maybe didn't want to do with a volunteer army or a volunteer military. I felt that was something that I needed, and it was a great experience overall.
Talk about that need, that's something you needed. Can you expand on that a little?
I needed some direction. I joined at 24 years old, which is a little bit older than those who come straight out of high school. I was doing random jobs and nothing felt right. Something was missing, and so my cousin had joined the Army, and he's like, "Don't join the Army." He's like, "Go to the Navy, go to anything. The Air Force would have been great." And I wanted a challenge. I needed a challenge, and so that's why I joined. My grandfather was in the Marines, served in World War II. My dad was in the Army, so kind of a family thing too. But yeah, I would do it again, given the same choice.
Excellent. Tell us about your experience in boot camp, basic training. What was that like?
So as an MP, not all MOSs are give me MOS. I know you're going to have to cut this now.
That's okay.
Mission Occupational Specialty, is that right?
Military
Occupation Specialty. So each MOS or mission or military occupational specialty works a little differently. So sometimes you'll go to boot camp at one station, one military station, or you may do it together. So with an MP, we went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, and we were there for 18 weeks. So you didn't have a transition. You just were in that phase the entire time. As a big man and a little bit older than most that were there, the drill sergeants made me an example, because they figured that if they could verbally scare me, everyone else would obey as well. So they went after the bigger guys. Obviously at 24, I bit my tongue, kept my mouth shut, because I didn't want to be made an example of. And I think that probably helped a lot of people that was there with me, just because of the fact that they said, hey, well, this big guy's not going to do anything, then we're going to be kind of quiet too. But it changed everything about me, still to this day, where I probably would run my mouth a little bit prior to serving. It gave me some discipline that I needed, and some direction, some like purpose in life. And I wanted to be a police officer, so that's why I went for the military police. I wanted to be that law and order person, and it was a great time overall. I lost 50 pounds from the start to finish, so I think I lost more weight than anyone else. I was, again, a big guy, but long legs, so I could run really well.
So looking back as a whole, what would you say is your favorite part of your military experience?
I think serving overseas. I served overseas for 3 years. I spent 2 years in Korea, South Korea, out by the DMZ, as a military police officer. It was a great experience. I got to work with other cultures, experience different things, travel. So it was definitely a great experience. The other year I served in Iraq with my explosive detection canine, searching for IEDs, explosives on the roadways. So we would, me and my canine would go and search the road prior to vehicles and troops moving up the road to make sure that they were safe. So that's what I did for a year, was search roadways, search buildings, looking for weapons, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, the hardest part about being in the military, I think, I mean, there's multiple things that are difficult, but growing up in a small town here in Michigan, being away from friends and family, being overseas was challenging. Just the time difference, and you get 30 days of leave per year, but 30 days, that's a month. So you're basically gone. So it'd be very difficult having a family, so a wife and kids, that would be really challenging. A lot of other things, military life is a little bit different than civilian life. Military life, there's consequences, again, in both, but people's lives could be put in jeopardy in the military. So if you don't act accordingly to the situation, someone could get hurt or killed because of those actions. Now, that could happen here, but not at Davenport University. You didn't show up to work, okay, no big deal. No one's life's in danger or jeopardy because of that. So, but yeah, a lot of different challenges, just adapting to a new environment. You move around a lot, so every 2 years or so I would move around to a different station, different base, new people. So that was definitely a challenge. Being told to eat, sleep, go to work daily, that was a big challenge for me.
All right. Touch on some of the key differences. You're touching on some of it now in terms of the military life and culture. What are some of those key differences between military life and culture and higher education culture as a student?
Within the military, everything is structured. There's a time and place for everything, but again, if you don't do what you're responsible to do, someone could get hurt. You could fail. The mission could fail because of one thing. Where in higher education, once again, if I didn't show up for work, or if I just didn't do what I was supposed to do that day, could it affect enrollment? Sure, it could affect our enrollment for one day, but I mean, someone could get hurt. We could, the mission could not be successful. I mean, so there's a lot of key differences, things that could really hinder the performance of the unit.
What adjustments as a learner, as a student in the classroom, what do you think some of their biggest adjustments would be?
I was a non-traditional student, so I can speak from that perspective. Coming into the classroom, I was one who was very authoritative and very direct and blunt. So if people were talking in the classroom, I'm like, be respectful to the teacher. I mean, they're trying to make sure that people learn. They're here to better people, better their classmates. And so I took charge, being that military police, that military person in the classroom. And I was very on time with my assignments. And if other people weren't on time, I was, what are you doing? I was trying to motivate them, trying to keep them on track, on schedule. Because if one fails, we all fail. That's the way the military is. That's another kind of big difference. If one fails, we all fail. And so if someone would get in trouble, we would all get in trouble. So in the classroom, it's not really that same mentality, but I brought that to the classroom because that's what was ingrained into me within the military.
What story can you share about a teacher who made a positive difference? What did they do and how did that make you feel?
So again, being a non-traditional student here at Davenport, my first class was ACES 100 with Dr. Jody Hicks. 8 o'clock in the morning, my first class, and I would always be there 10 minutes early. So if you're not early, you're late. So I brought that again from the military. And she would sometimes get stopped in the hallway by some leadership personnel, and I was touching my watch when she walked in 2 minutes after. And so she laughed it off, and it was all funny. But she really understood where I was coming from, that I am used to a very structured environment, that we start at this time, we end at this time. And she made me feel very comfortable, welcomed. She allowed me to be kind of in charge of some scenarios where I could be helpful to motivate students, to make sure that we're all being successful. So if someone was struggling, she would go to me and say, Jason, can you help this student out? And it made me feel really comfortable, and it was a great starting class to make me successful in the college environment. I didn't think I was going to go to school, honestly. I chose Davenport because I had some family members who attended here, but also it's a smaller school. I knew I'd get more one-on-one interaction with faculty, and so I've taken 44 classes here, both for my undergrad and my graduate program, and all instructors are really understanding to my experiences, because they always ask, has anyone served in the military in the classroom? Some people aren't really fond of being identified, and you don't have to identify. I always identified because I felt comfortable doing so. So I would definitely not make it mandatory. That's one of those things that I think could really affect some people that maybe want to be quiet and want to be keep everything internal. But I have no problem sharing what I did, and I think that sharing experiences across the board is very important, because we all can learn from one another.
Speaking of learning from one another, have you had someone who made a negative difference? What did they do, and how did that make you feel?
Taking some classes with traditional students. I started here at 33 years old for my undergrad, and so some of the core classes, your English, your math, communication classes, those fundamentals, you're taking class with students who are 10 to 15 years younger than you, and most are very respectful, but sometimes you could have a few that not as respectful, not paying attention, playing on their phones while people are speaking. In military life, that would not be acceptable. They would be the action would be, or the action would be corrected very fast. So again, biting my tongue, but then maybe pulling them aside after the fact, saying, "Hey, you shouldn't do that. You're here. You're paying good money. You're here to learn, and be respectful of the instructors." So that's the only negative experience, and most were understanding. Most students, I did it multiple times, because again, there's a different culture between myself, upbringing that I had, versus someone 10 to 15 years younger than me. So, but overall, it was a positive difference after the fact.
Okay, thank you. And the grand finale, if you could tell people one thing about how to better engage and support our military students, what would that be?
I would say to put yourself in their shoes. Most of our military students here at Davenport are not traditional. They're non-traditional students. They could be anywhere from 22 to 62. And again, the ones that identify that are comfortable doing so, I think they should be respected. No difference than anyone else deserves that same respect. So just putting yourself in their shoes, and I definitely don't feel that we need to be coddled. The military population doesn't need to be coddled and have their hand held, but just understood and listened to, because they did a great service to their country and to the people here within the U.S. So I really just feel that maybe some extra time or extra consideration should be to given to those who need it.